So welcome everyone to the webinar with Robert Johnson tonight. He's going to talk a little bit about Next Move Impact Planning. For those that weren't able to get on, we will be recording this and you'll be listening to it later. So welcome and hello to you as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kim. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. What I'd like to do tonight is talk a little bit about this process that we call Next Move Impact Planning. It's a process that I developed 20 years ago and have been refining it since then. I've used it many places around the world. And what I'd like to do is give you an opportunity to learn about it and to become a practitioner using this process. So let me just start by talking a little bit about me. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know. As a quick intro into who I am and what I do. For the last 10 years, I've been a member of the Duke University Corporate Education Global Education Network. That's a group of individuals who travel around the world finding organizations who are facing various challenges and who are experiencing different kinds of pain and who want to find a way of meeting those challenges more effectively. The Duke Corporate Education Network has been rated for the last 10 years as #1 by Business Week and by Financial Times as the premier training tool used by leaders around the world. So I've been a part of that for the last 10 years. In addition to that, I'm also a member of the Faculty of CEO Space that Kim mentioned earlier. For those of you who want some reading, I've got a couple of articles on my website. There are a couple of articles that are from Forbes magazine. One as recent as just last month. And then there are a couple of articles from another magazine called Professional Performance 360, where I write about leadership and leadership tools. There's a book out there as well that talks about leadership development, and there's a new book coming out in 2015. So all told, I've been doing this for 40 years as a global corporate and business consulting leader. So it makes me sound really old. So please, don't bring that up again, okay? Most of what I use, the tools that I use, are my own design. So there are 18 patented learning tools and tools around polymer chemistry. So what you'll be hearing tonight is my need to find ways of giving people access to the tools that I have developed. So let's talk for a minute about what this Next Move Impact Planning is. As I said, I developed this 20 years ago, and I've been refining it ever since then. And it's actually what I call a game-changing planning tool and decision-making process. And it's designed to do several things with organizations. First, it's designed to show the impact of their next move before making the move. Most organizations are keen on learning from experience, but as Benjamin Franklin once said, experience is a very expensive university. It would be great if we could find a way of beginning to explore what the impact of that move is going to be before we make the move. And in so doing, it allows us to make better decisions, faster decisions, and cheaper decisions. Because we so often learn from experience, we have a tendency when we make decisions to make decisions that are incremental decisions, that is just a small step change, because we're afraid if we make a decision that's too big, if that decision turns out not to be the right decision, that it could turn around and blow us out of the water. So we play it safe, making smaller decisions, and oftentimes we don't reap the full benefits of what we are capable of doing as organizations. The third piece of this is that it applies what we call a practice field approach to avoiding unintended consequences. Organizations and companies and big and small groups around the world often talk about being high performance team. Everybody wants to be a high performance team. The problem with that is that when they think about high performance teams, we actually find that great teams spend more time practicing than they do performing. I mean, so you think about people in the Olympics, they may practice for a lifetime and run 10 seconds. High performance teams actually spend more time practicing than they do performing. In organizations, however, no practice field processes that allow people to explore how they're doing, what they're doing, unless they get out there and they begin doing it in real time. So all the learning is real time, which means that all the mistakes are also in real time. And that can be a problem. So next move impact planning allows people to look out there and begin to explore the impact of their next move before they make the move, make those decisions faster and cheaper, and find a way of practicing those decisions, make the decisions so that they can begin to be more effective at the decision-making process. So let me just talk for a minute about who's used it. So I said I've been using it and been developing it for the last 2 years. I'll just tell you a few stories. So in 2008, the government of Dubai was facing the looming financial crisis. It's been so far back, some of us have forgotten the financial crisis, but the government of Dubai actually has a strategic plan. And I was pretty impressed with them just having a strategic plan, because I often think the governments kind of make it up as they go along. But these folks actually have a strategic plan. And when they began to see the looming financial crisis in 2008, they asked themselves, is our strategic plan resilient enough to ride the wave of what we think is going to take place? And so working through the leadership group at Duke University, they brought us in to help them explore that. And as they began looking, what they discovered was that they have one, at that time, primary area of focus, and that happened to be developing and shipping oil. Now, most people think of Dubai as being an oil country, but they're not an oil-rich country. They are an oil services country. What that means is that UAE countries around them ship their oil to Dubai, and Dubai literally then ships that oil in places all over the world. They are expert at shipping and making sure that things get from point A to point B safely. I don't know if you remember this, but shortly after 9/11, George W. Bush, when he was president, recognized that the ports of the United States were extremely vulnerable to potential terrorist attacks. So he suggested asking the Dubai government to help us shore up the security of our ports. And he asked them that because the Dubai government is so good at structuring and coming up with great ways of moving things from one place to another around the world. Well, the problem with that is that as 9/11 and the impact of 9/11 and the impact of the 2008 financial crisis got bigger and bigger, we began to see that the price of oil was dropping, that people weren't traveling, that we just couldn't afford to do many of the things that we used to do. So they're on the brink of having difficulty developing revenues because there was fewer barrels of oil to ship around the world. So through this process, we helped them realize that they needed to diversify. And when you look at Dubai now, in fact, if you go on their website and you look at this 2008 crisis and how they managed to survive that, they actually say that through their diversification, they survived that crisis. And it's this process, this next move impact planning process, that allowed them to have that realization. The other group is the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So this is now 2011, 3 years after the 2008 financial crisis. So now the financial crisis is, we hope, in their rearview mirror. What they see is they realize that they have, at least in the way that they describe themselves, have pulled themselves and pulled the rest of the world back from the brink of potential financial crisis by some of the things that they did. And they saw that they were actually in days that normally would have taken years to do. And so they called us in and they wanted to know, so what can we do to continue this sense of urgency without having a crisis looming over us? And as a result of that, some of the things that they implemented, you see today, and they're so seamless until we don't often think of them as being significant changes. But for instance, now it's not uncommon to have the Fed chair give news conferences. Before 2011, the Fed chair was kind of like the groundhog. He appeared or she appeared at appearances in Congress during the obligatory time where they had to come and talk, but you really didn't see or hear much of the Fed chair before that. The process allowed the New York Fed to realize that they needed to be more transparent in the way that they're operating so that the rest of the world could begin to appreciate what they were doing, and so that individuals within the Fed could continue to have that sense of urgency without having a crisis. The third group that I'll talk about here for just a minute is AAA of Arizona. So in 1999, AAA realized that demographics were changing. Some of you are probably old enough to remember triptychs. In 1999, triptychs were still pretty popular. And for those of you who don't remember triptychs, when you wanted to go from point A to point B on a road trip, you would call AAA and say, plan this trip for me. And they would give you a 3 by 7 inch map, fold-up map that had the route marked out for you, had points of interest marked on that map, and you would start your trip following this map and just going point by point based on what's written on the map. Also, in 1999, people who wanted to take an airplane trip would probably call a travel agent and have the travel agent make those arrangements for them. AAA realized that things were going to be changing. The demographics were changing. Technology was changing. And with the implementation or the introduction of things like the GPS, now people just pull out a telephone and figure out how to get from point A to point B. We don't call AAA. And if we want to take a trip, we go online and we make our own reservations. So the traditional uses of AAA were beginning to disappear, and they realized that. So we get called in, working with AAA, using the next move impact planning, and allow them to begin to explore what their potential next moves might be. One of the things that they identified was that people associate them with automobiles. And one of the things that everybody who has an automobile has is automobile insurance. So they said, well, what if we start an insurance company? A lot of people thought at that time that AAA was offering insurance, but they really weren't. AAA said, why don't we offer our own insurance? We can use our brand to continue to increase penetration amongst our members, and everything will be fine. But when they began looking at their idea using next move impact planning, what they began to realize was that one of the uncertainties was we don't know about insurance. And if we sit down in front of a potential investor, the first question the investor is going to ask is, so tell me about your experience in insurance. And they would have to confess that we don't know beans about insurance. And that's not a very good start for a conversation with an investor. So the process allowed them to come up with an alternative. And the alternative was to find an insurance company who would be willing to partner with them. And 5 years down the road, they would bring that insurance company inside AAA and actually now be able to say to a potential investor, we aren't very skilled in insurance, but we now have a partner who is an expert at insurance, and this is going to help move us forward. In addition to that, there are a range of nonprofit and for-profit institutions, as well as small business owners and entrepreneurs who have also used this process. So you don't have to be a behemoth organization. Small organizations and individuals also use this as a way of exploring what their next move should be how they want to move in those directions and what some of the uncertainties are likely to be. So I want to play a commercial for you.
What's going on?
Bob just got auto insurance from AAA. He's putting the sticker on his car.
Never knew AAA had insurance.
The sticker you trust does more than towing. Learn how AAA goes beyond the bumper with the most complete insurance coverage and claim service you'd expect from AAA for members and non-members. Get a free quote today online.
What's up with the big sticker?
Home insurance.
So in the commercial, there's this guy who's watching the small sticker being placed on a car, and he says, "I never knew AAA had auto insurance." So that was the realization for him that AAA has auto insurance. The interesting thing about this commercial is that the auto insurance piece was the part that we surfaced. But over the last 15, 16 years since they have been in the insurance business, they realize that the AAA brand is a very trusted brand and they can offer other kinds of insurance. So the last part of that commercial showed a big sticker being put on the house to indicate that AAA is now offering homeowners insurance as well. So what you're seeing now with the direction that AAA has taken over the last 15, 16 years was a direct result of us working with them and using this next move impact planning process to expand their thinking of where they should move and how those moves are likely to impact the future of their business. So why are we doing this? Let me just take a look at the objectives behind all of this. So as I said, what I'm showing you, what I'm introducing, are tools that I've developed, and they're either patented or proprietary tools. And what that means is that individuals or organizations who use these tools basically have to call me in order to use those tools. And I'm realizing that there are big problems around the world that I believe these tools could be very effective at helping people think through and address. So what I want to do is build a legacy where people can make better decisions through practitioners and experts like you who have access to global businesses. The other thing we want to try and do is develop a network of consultants, trained people like yourselves who are experienced in the principles of next move impact planning. And then finally, to expand the use of next move impact planning and these unique tools into organizations around the world. So like I said, the number of problems certainly doesn't seem to be going away, but as I look back at the places where I have used these tools, the influence around the world, quite frankly, some of those influences actually surprised me. And I realized that there are other places and organizations and governments and institutions who could benefit from people who know how to use these tools effectively. So the reason we've put this training program together is to begin to realize and address the issue of complexity. Problems are getting bigger and more complex, and you can't address the current problems with the kinds of thinking that was used to create those problems. So that's a paraphrase of Albert Einstein. There was a study done back in the 70s by Royal Dutch Shell, and many organizations feel that if we are successful, we will continue to be successful. Royal Dutch Shell back in the 70s, when they were facing the challenge of the OPEC embargo, began to ask themselves, so what are we going to do to survive into the 21st century? And they thought that they would look at organizations who they felt were successful organizations, who's doing well. And they developed a list of organizations that they thought were doing well. And what they hoped to find was, how they're doing well, and to simply duplicate or replicate what those organizations are doing. 10 years after, back in the 80s, they looked began at organizations, and they discovered that a third of those organizations had disappeared from the list. Another 10 years passed, and they looked at the list, and they found that another third had disappeared from the list. So what they expected to find was that organizations who are successful, who learn to be successful, would always be successful. What they seemed to find was that current success for many organizations is a greater indication of future failure than future success. And organizations who were not able to ask themselves or keep the question before them about what do we need to do in order to be agile, to be nimble, to be able to make adjustments to new challenges that are coming down the pike, those organizations would typically. The other thing that reason that we were putting this in place is that we want to try and expand the capacity of using these decision tools, better decision-making tools, in organizations around the world, so that the global business community can make better decisions through practitioners such as yourselves. So what does this process look like? It's going to be a 4-day intensive training experience, and it's going to consist of classroom instruction. It's going to consist of practice sessions. Practice sessions will involve actually having live business subjects who are facing various challenges and who want to be guinea pigs for people who are using and learning how to use this tool, this technology. So these practice sessions will be live, impactful practice sessions, both for the participants and for the businesses who agreed to be a part of this. In addition to that, this is the inaugural session, and we're going to be videotaping all the presentations from this session. As I said, I've been working on this for the last 20 years, and it's virtually impossible to try and absorb everything that happens in the classroom in 4 days. So we'll be capturing the presentations on video, and we'll be developing training videos that will be made available to individuals who come through the training process. Next Move Impact Planning has a series, a software package associated with it. The process actually involves a series of decision-making steps using matrices, starting with helping organizations define what the framing question is, that is the question that they really want the answer to. Who are the stakeholders? What do the stakeholders want? What would success look like? What kinds of things might be getting in the way? What's the range of options for addressing the needs of stakeholders? And then how do you test those options so that you can determine which ones are more resilient? And then developing an action plan from that. And that's a software piece that allows people to think through those various steps and at the end come up with a plan that works for them. In addition to that, there is a 1-hour webinar check-in and updates that we will conduct on a monthly basis. And again, this gives participants a chance to share their learning, ask new questions, and hear what other people are doing in this area. One of the critical pieces is being able to build a learning community. And to do that, we are asking that participants who go through the process once a year for 2 years come to a 2-day refresher or 2-day networking or network building session where we come back and we talk about what we've done, and we talked about what we've seen, we talked about how we've influenced people around the world, our various clients, and we can begin then to see and think about this from a perspective beyond ourselves. Many of you are experts in just a range of areas. Some of you will be using these tools in various disciplines. Few of you will be using them in all the disciplines. Some of you may be really good at doing that, but we want to find ways of learning from you so that we can begin to create a learning network and build on the learning experience of the people who are part of the process. So let me just pause here for a second. You guys have been really quiet. Nobody's interrupted me. Either I've talked really fast or you've all gone home.
Hello, I am here. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
This is Priscilla Dames. How are you today, Robert?
Good. Good to hear from you.
My question is, you did say once we train them and walk them through the whole process, one of the at least end results is the action planning stage. In our learning from you, do you walk us and teach us about the action planning process, or as far as the different ways this might be done?
We do. So what you'll find is that this process is an organic process. That is, for most planning pieces, you call a consultant and they go through the process with the client, they write it up, and they give you the document, and they say, thank you very much. What you find with this process is that it's an organic process, and that is, as you develop ideas and action plans, that we want to help organizations continue to ask questions about how effective those plans are, what other things might be changing, what other demographics, what other forces around them are changing, so that as they begin to develop implementation plans, those implementation plans aren't so rigid that they can't make adjustments to the forces around them. So yes, the final matrix piece is an implementation plan that allows you to look at the specific steps you want to take, define what success looks like, and begin to identify cost and who's going to be responsible for those pieces. But beyond that, there's also an opportunity to develop an implementation of that. That is, how do you execute? The plan itself may be a great plan. There are all kinds of organizations that have great plans, but who figure out how to execute. So we would be doing our clients a disservice if we give them a plan, but then we leave execution up to them. You know, it's, as I say, it's almost like telling a great joke and expecting the audience to come up with the punchline. Full understanding of what it's going to take in order to be successful, and give them the understanding that there is value in keeping the question on the table. Because even if you come up with a great answer today, because there are demographic forces, economic forces, technological forces around you that are changing, the answer itself may shift. Okay. So, you know, one of the pieces of this process, one of the things that really makes it special is the question piece. For most people around the world, we have been taught that the answer has more value than the question. You know, once we found the answer, then we're really happy that we found that answer. But once we found that answer, we typically stop asking the question. And you know, my favorite example, personal example, is, you know, losing my keys in my house. When I lose my keys and I'm trying to find them, I find all kinds of things that I lost while I'm looking for my keys. But once I find my keys, I stop looking. And organizations are very much like that. Once they have what they think is the answer, then they stop asking the question. So the process is designed to keep the question before organizations, so that even if we have a response to what we think is facing us today, we realize that today's solutions really become the seeds of tomorrow's problems. So we want to make sure that that mindset, that question mindset, is fertile and that it allows organizations to be in an effective way. Well, that's a lot of words, Priscilla. Did I hit on?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Are you?
Robert, describe for me the process, the live process. This is William. Describe for me, if you will, the process with the new student fresh out of your course and the client that is allowing us to use them as a guinea pig, and your interaction with us, since there may be multiple uh, uh, graduates that are out there at the same time trying to work on clients that are allowing us to become good at what we do with them.
Mm-hmm. So are you talking about the guinea pig process?
Yes, after the classroom is over, when we actually are sitting in front of a live client that you have that has agreed to be the guinea pig. Describe that process for us and how you interact with us, particularly if there are multiple students in front of different clients at the same time.
All right, so there are a couple of things going on here. So now the guinea pig process is during the actual training.
Okay.
So you've got real business people with real issues who come in, and they have agreed to allow to practice these skills on them. So it's got to be experiential. It can't just be classroom instruction, because these tools have so many nuances, and really have to begin to practice the process so that you can begin to see just sort of what's behind the curtain for you. Practice is key for this, because you will find that even after you leave the training, it's, I guess I'll use the word exhilarating. It's kind of like skydiving, because you're never quite sure where you're going to land, but you know you've got a good shoot. So in the training process, you've got real life clients who come in. It's kind of like going to a beauty salon training school, where people come in to have their hair done, okay, at a reduced fee, and they know that you're practicing on them, but in the process of practicing on them, on you, they learn how to perfect their skills. So by the end of that 4 days, you will have had a lot of time with real life clients. So now beyond that, when you leave there and you find clients that you want to try or invite them to be a part of the Next Move Impact planning process. So I'm available. By the way, so now the class is going to be limited to 10 people. It's not going to be a big class. So we're not looking for 100 people to come in so that there's a room full of folks. My philosophy is that you need to have a small enough class so that you've got good air time, good experiential time, so that the learning is impactful and intense. So with a small class, when you leave there, then I'm available, and other people who have been trained to do this are available to work with you, answer questions, so that you are effective at running this process. In addition to that, this access to the training video is important because now you can go back in and you can pull up various pieces of the process, listen to it again, kind of hear again what was said in the classroom and process that. It's going to be not an easy task to just absorb everything in 4 days. That's why we want to make those training videos accessible to you. So with the training videos and with the practice sessions and with the access to me and other folks who've been trained to do this, we can walk you through this so that you become expert in the process.
Okay.
Other questions?
So, Bob, this is Kim. I don't think I heard you mention the fact that they're based off of some recent discoveries that we've talked about, that there may be opportunities for you to place people, and that's not like right off the bat, but it looks like there's going to be some possible opportunities coming up in the future. And if someone was already certified, that those would be the people that you would call on to help fill in some of the gaps of this larger um, group that needs some help with next move impact planning.
Absolutely. I'll just give you a couple of examples. And again, it goes back to why I'm doing this. I'm doing it because I've seen literally governments change and become more effective as a result of using this process. And I've got to find a way. If I believe in it, then I do, and I've seen it successful. I want to find a way of exposing the rest of the world to these tools through people like you. So when you ask yourself, so what's happening out there that might make it necessary for people to engage folks like you and like me? I've got a client right now who is in healthcare, and they're wrestling with two things. One is the Affordable Care Act, and what are the implications of that? I mean, that in itself is turning the healthcare profession on its head. The second thing that they're wrestling with is undocumented immigrants. And it turns out that this particular group is a bilingual group, and they have a lot of undocumented immigrants. And that now coupled with the Affordable Care Act, Health Care Act, means that they need to change the way in which they're thinking about doing business. So as I said, business is becoming more and more complex, even the things that we take for granted every day. One of the other areas that I've been talking about, so I mentioned the Dubai situation back in 2008, where they were not an oil producing country, but they are an oil services country. Again, in that part of the world, and here, we're seeing the price of gasoline go down because the fracking in the United States has created more oil, or putting more oil out there in the market, which is driving the price of gasoline down. Now, the balancing act is that it costs about $60 a barrel to make or to be profitable when you're producing oil using the fracking process. It costs much less than that when you're producing oil if you're just pumping it out of the ground, like the folks over in the Middle East. So the folks in the Middle East are saying, hey, normally we would stop pumping oil in order to keep the price high. But the problem is that if we keep the price high, then that encourages the people who are fracking. So what they've said is that, hey, we'll just keep pumping oil. So the price goes down, and maybe the folks who are in the fracking business get out of the fracking business. So there's this complexity around what's going to happen. You know, where do you move, and who blinks first? So these are the kinds of things that I get to deal with. And obviously, as these issues become bigger and bigger, I need to have people who can work with me in some of these industries using this tool in order to help literally reshape the way that some of these organizations think about the world.
So, Bob, can I ask you a question? Are you saying that you need like a team of 4 or 5 people when you go into a large company in order to make it, to shorten the time of making those decisions and to allow that company to go forward?
That's very likely, Michael. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Um, and so you, not only in that company, but you're probably going to have other companies in that same industry that are asking the same question. And I can only be at one place at a time. So it'd be great to have a network of people who know and understand these processes, who can help move things forward in a more effective way.
So another question then is, are we working as a team, as contracted to you or part of your organization? How do you foresee that, please?
Yes, to both of those. So if you learn the tool, then you get to use this with your clients. Or you may find a client who is just so big, like you were just describing, where you need other people, and then we get to work together. I may find a client where I need more people, so then we get to work together as a network. So you have the freedom of doing both and. So
Sounds great. One other question. So are most of these jobs inside America, or will it be traveling overseas, and does that mean that all expenses are paid prior to going?
when we engage a client, the client picks up all the expenses.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
And it can be anywhere. So, I mean, I'm describing Dubai. We've got the group, the healthcare group right down here in South Carolina. We've got another group in Canada, group in India. So, I mean, anywhere you find people who are dealing with these kinds of issues. So and as I think back on this, and as I tell some of these stories, I have to ask myself, are you making this up? I can't believe the places that I actually get to be, sitting at the table, listening to people talk about these issues, and using this kind of tool to help them reshape their thinking. So it could be anywhere, government issues, you name it. We just don't know. Anywhere you find people working with people.
Can I ask one more question in case somebody else wants one? That is, anybody can ask a question. I'm sure some people are finding it hard to conceptualize how do your questions or your process differ from anybody else that's going to move a business forward, and why are businesses just asking themselves their own questions?
All right, so ask that once again, Michael.
What I'm saying is anybody can ask a bunch of questions. What makes the difference between the setup process that you have to solve a business, and why do businesses bring you in when they could ask themselves their own questions? Are they bound within some box of thinking, or they can't see outside? Because I'm sure some people are trying to grasp conceptually, why is this process so different to other processes?
Well, it's a funny thing, and so my experience is that asking the question is really the difficult part, and I'll tell you why it is. It's because we have been taught that the question has less value than the answer, and it's the whole grade school thing. We reward people from being able to raise their hands and say, "I've got the answer." Don't look around to see who's not raising their hand to ask, "What don't you understand about this question?" So we have a whole mindset around how we approach things. For many organizations, for most people in organizations, asking a question implies that you don't know what you're doing. You get hired to know what you're doing. You get hired to have the answers. You don't get hired to have the questions. So the whole culture around asking questions is a little bit skewed. So where this process starts is helping organizations define what we call the framing question. And the question is, so what is it that you really want to know as an organization? And, you know, most people will jump to some question about the bottom line, you know, profits or something like that. But when you look at the way organizations kind of ebb and flow, revenues are the result of being able to ask better questions upstream. If you ask the wrong questions upstream, then you end up with some revenues that may be attractive, but it will never represent the full potential of that organization. So part of the training is defining what is a framing question. What is the thing that we really want to know? And that's critical because once you ask that question, then you have automatically put yourself on a path to begin looking in certain directions. So the question is going to really drive you in a certain direction. So taking time to explore what that is in itself a skill that has largely been lost in many organizations. But once we know what that question is, we can begin to explore the critical issues that need to be addressed to resolve that question, not answer the question, but what are those critical issues? Now you can begin to develop a systemic map, a literal map on paper of what kinds of things are moving us and influencing us in certain ways. You know, what kinds of things get in the way, what kinds of things can we leverage, and begin to have a much more comprehensive thought process for addressing or exploring that question. And as I said, part of the challenge is going to be keeping the question on the table. I'll get on a short soapbox about education. You know, for most of us, we're taught that the purpose of education is to help us find answers. In my world, the purpose of education is to help us to explore questions with greater elegance. So I give you an example. You know, so if I ask, you know, when did Sir Isaac Newton discover gravity? And most people will say, hey, when he saw the apple fall from the tree. But chances are he discovered gravity at about 8 or 9 months old when he was trying to walk, and he fell down on his backside. Okay, he discovered gravity, but it took a Cambridge education to allow him to explore the questions of gravity with greater elegance and understand what the implications of gravity are. So the whole question thing really is a critical piece that has largely been lost in most organizations. And as a result, they end up with answers that tend to be short-term, you know, addressing the bottom line over the next quarter or two or maybe a year, and answers that give them an incremental change when they could potentially be experiencing quantum leaps.
Robert, are you suggesting that even though the client is aware they have a problem, they really don't know what questions to ask to put them on track for solving that problem?
Yes, I am, largely, because, you know, the problems that we're experiencing have to do with our own background. The pain that we're experiencing has to do with the particulars of our background and the things that have happened around us. It's that fishbowl, and it's not so easy stepping out of that fishbowl so that you can begin to see systemically what's going on here. And that's why organizations need people like me and you to look from the outside to not have the answers. I mean, so I've described a range of industries, and I certainly am not smart enough to be an expert in oil and shipping and insurance and all those things, medical, all those kinds of things. But what I do is I bring a pair of eyes that allow people to see questions in a different light. Everybody has blind spots. I mean, just like driving a car, no matter how expensive your car is, every car has a blind spot. But once you begin to know what those blind spots are, then you can intentionally look in those blind spots before making a move. Organizations are very much the same way. And what people like you and I do is help organizations begin to uncover those blind spots so that they can look more intentionally and make better decisions before making certain kinds of moves. The tricky part is that it really sounds easy by just saying, hey, just ask questions. But when you begin to play out the implications of some of the answers that people are trying to put in place, you begin to see that they're largely on a path that isn't going to give them a sustainable future.
So Bob, it's close to, just to make sure everybody's good with the time. It's close to an hour now. It's 4 minutes till it's been an hour. And did you have some other things that you wanted to wrap up, or would you like for me to tell them what the next steps are?
Well, I wanted to just show them, kind of what the implications are to them. So what's
cool.
the value of this? So you have tools like this, and it basically improves your marketability. So that people know that now you have something that is distinctive that other consultants don't have. You become a part of this learning network so that we all get a chance to learn from each other. The collaborative relationship is what will help drive the success of what we're building here. Gives you greater value to your clients, and as a result, broaden opportunities for you to build income and play in some places that right now you might not be able to be a part of. So let me give an example of how this gets priced out in corporate fees. So this is typically what I see with corporate fees. The process is usually a 4 to 7 day process, so it's not very long. And it's not like going and being camped in for a year with a group, but it's concise. It takes them step by step, and within a week, organizations will typically see this is what we need to do. Now, that doesn't talk about the implementation plan and the execution of that plan. Okay, that's beyond that. This is just coming up with the aha moment so that they can clearly see where they need to go. And typical fees for that are $15,000 a day in that 4 to 7 day range. So that's $60,000 to $105,000 for a client over the course of a week. What we're trying to do is develop the inaugural NMIP training process. So you're the first to go through this with me, and we're offering this at discounted levels, severely discounted levels. So for 4-day training, it's $5,000 for 4-day training, for that comprehensive training. In addition to that, of course, that includes all the training materials and the software and the monthly webinar updates. In order to sustain that learning, we're asking for a commitment of the next 2 years to come back 2 days during each one of those years to reinforce and refresh that learning and the experience that you've had, so that we can continue to reinforce and move forward with the learning of organizations and with individuals who are part of this training program. It's a journey, and you're going to find, I mean, like I said, I've been doing it for 20 years, and I'm still finding ways of applying this and tweaking this process and finding places where this could have significant impact with groups around the world. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Kim, and we can try to wrap up here.
Okay, and that was an awesome finish too, by the way. There's so many large corporations and large groups of people in globally that are feeling extreme pain with the changes that are happening in this world. And I know your process, Next Move Impact Planning, is it's a very viable way of helping them to see what their next move could be. And I love the practice, Phil, a way to do this without them, going and having to make all the mistakes first and even losing more ground than they already have. So this is really exciting for me to watch this process be put into place. And I really appreciate you taking the time tonight, Bob, to be able to explain this further to everyone. So just to so what we're going to do next is, in order to make sure that this is a good fit for you and that this is really the right thing for you to be doing, and that it will serve you well, and that you're in the right position to do this at this time, Bob's going to do one-on-one calls. And so our call to action is very simple. I'm going to put a link in the chat box. If you can't get it or don't see it, I'm just going to say it out loud. You're going to go to the website, Robert Johnson Speaks, it ends with an S.com /NMIP for Next Move Impact Planning certification. And there's a short form to fill out there. And once you fill out that form, then we'll call you and set up a time for you to speak with Bob. Make sure this is good. Make sure that you're committed to going through with this process, that you want to be part of it. And then we'll tell you how to get enrolled and how to get set up and to make your payments and things like that. So that's all you have to do at this point in time. We're trying, whoops, I didn't send it to everybody. Hold on just a second. Let me send it to everybody. Okay, it's in the chat box right now. So this isn't something, it is a pre-registration link. When you go to fill out the form, that's what it says. It's the pre-registration link, and that is so that we can have the one-on-one call with you and Bob. You can make sure that this is right for you, and answer all the questions that you may have, and then we will go ahead and fully register you. If you have any questions, I'm going to also type in my email address, as well as put in my phone number in the chat box, and I'll say it out loud as well. If you would like to call me or email me directly, you can do that as well. Okay, so my email address is my name. It's Kim Burney, so it's KIMBURNEY @gmail.com. And my phone number is 817-751-4563. So please go out and fill out that registration form, though. It asks, for your name, your email address, your phone number, and the best time to call. And then we'll get back with you very quickly. We know it's the holidays. That's why we want to do it this way. We want to make sure that you're clear about what the next steps are, that this is a great fit for you, and you're ready to make the commitment to do this. So does anyone have any questions, or did anybody need me to repeat that, or did you get it?
I need something, Kim. I don't have chat box visible to me. So
Okay.
would you give me Robert's email, the address for his website, please?
Okay. It's Robert Johnson Speaks. It ends with an S.com. So ROBERT Johnson JOHNSON Speaks SPEAKS.com /NMIP certification.
Okay.
And like I said, if you have any trouble getting to that, just give me a call, 817-751-4563, or you can text me and I'll text you the link. Either way works.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing you all. I plan on being at the event as well. And Julie says they need to click on the red and white arrow at the top of their screen. That would expand your chat box so you can see where it says chat if you would like to do it that way. But if you wrote it down, that's fine too.
So we did not introduce Julie. Julie Jennings is online with us, and Julie is also working with us in pulling the program together. So you may hear from her or talk with her, just so you know.
Yeah, Julie's been in the consulting business for many, many years. She and her husband both. She's a powerhouse to be reckoned with. I know her from CEO Space as well, and love working with Julie. I think Bob would tell you the same thing. Julie has herself muted because we figured out that she was our echo.
Okay. So I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight, and I look forward to working with you.